Recorded live from the Washington, D.C. metro area. You're listening to Seasoned for Success, hosted by Rob Ross.
If you ain't first, you're last.
Learn from a melting pot of industry leaders and find the right ingredients for success.
Folks, welcome to our Friday live chat from Deep Creek Real Estate here at TaylorMade Deep Creek Vacations and Sales. I'm Terah Crawford. I am the broker for our Maryland team, soon to be broker for our PA and West Virginia teams. Yes, that's right. We are licensed in 3 states here at TaylorMade Deep Creek Vacations and Sales. And I am so excited to be joined by my friend and my colleague, Rob Ross, who is the leader of the Ross Group at Intercoastal Mortgage. Recently, we partnered with the Ross Group. They are our in-house lending partner now. So Rob's team includes himself, Chris Kearney, Alec Gagne, and Mariah France. Mariah is actually in our office several days a week. She drives from Fairmont, and she is here to assist not just our agents, but also definitely our community and our clients with their lending needs, anything regarding mortgages, refinances. They do everything from existing mortgages on existing homes. They have an awesome construction product, So as soon as Rob jumps on here, we will get started. And we're going to just talk to you. There he is. We're going to talk to you about the market in its current condition and maybe some things that could be rolling down the pipe for spring.
Perfect. Sounds good. Thanks for having me. And we are pumped. Thanks for the kind words at the beginning. And we couldn't be, more happy and excited to be, although we've worked with TaylorMade for a long time and I have, and we love everything about you guys and what you do. It's nice to kind of be officially partners with you and have some office space there to help out and really form a great partnership to help folks in the region, West Virginia, Deep Creek, Pennsylvania. I say Deep Creek, Maryland in general, right? But Garrett County, for that matter, centrally located there. And we're excited about the future, and I'm excited about the real estate industry and the mortgage industry, and kind of where we've been and where we're headed are all great things. There's you can hear some negative press out there from time to time, but that's all it is negative press. In my opinion, it's never a better time than now to purchase still in real estate. And I think us having a conversation on here to educate people on what they can and can't do or should be thinking about, and possibly alleviate some concerns that individuals might have with buying a home, or just some misnomers that are out there. And hopefully we can put the hammer down on those and get people excited, because this market's still hot, and it's still the time to buy or sell, for that matter. So
definitely. Well, and you and I had a little pre-conversation last evening about this. And one of the big things that comes up so often, not just in the conversation that we had, but in conversations with anyone who's thinking of selling, is, okay, if I sell in most markets, I now also have to be a buyer because I need a place to live. So we see that, and we see some of that resistance from sellers, especially outside of the Deep Creek Lake area. So Garrett County is a huge part of Maryland. It's the westernmost county in Maryland, for those of you who aren't familiar with our geography, and actually one of the largest by land mass, but the smallest by population in the state. Outside of the Deep Creek Lake area, it is agriculture and other types of industries that keep things going for our full-time residents. And it does, by some perspectives, feel like a bad time to sell a full-time residence if you then need to become a buyer to purchase. So talk to me a little bit about how you are handling that conversation with those folks, because you deal mostly on the buyer side.
Yeah, so you're right. It can be a tricky conversation, and that conversation for me can change depending on geography, where they're located. And it's not a trick to my conversation. It's just reality, right? And every buyer is going to be a little different. because of scenario. So that's part of my job as a loan officer is I'm a home counselor or mortgage therapist, whatever you want to call it, because it's a stressful time and people are thinking of buying, and I'm the Dr. Phil of home lending, if you want to call me that. And hair wise, I'm on my way right to Dr. Phil too.
I was about to make a hair crack.
Yeah, I'm getting close. So,
I don't think so.
Yeah, he's got enough money, he can buy hair. So, but it really depends on the scenario. A perfect scenario, would be someone that owns a beautiful home in Deep Creek that has taken advantage of the appreciation and market gain that we've seen over the last, let's call it 5 years, especially the last 24 months or 27 months. And someone that needs to buy and they need to move to the Midwest. Yeah, they probably hit the jackpot if they have that scenario, because they're going to be moving to some markets that, again, nationwide appreciation has happened, but in different pockets, being Deep Creek Lake in Garrett County, Washington, D.C. market, where I'm coming to you live from right now. There's different pockets where the appreciation has really jumped through the roof. And the reason a lot of that appreciation is basic economics, right? It's supply and demand. And you were talking last night about in Deep Creek, how many homes are on the market? 88, something like that. Yeah.
I'm muted. So we bumped up this morning. I was so excited to tell you, 5 new homes came on the market.
Perfect.
This morning. But yeah, so we're hanging around the low 80s right now.
Yep. And to give you guys on watching this, kind of a gauge. When we were talking last night, when I was talking with Terah, 300 to 400 homes could have been normal, 4 or 5 years ago, maybe even more recent than that. So, and again, none of that's to scare you, because it just makes competition a little stronger. But if you have a home to sell, guess what? You're going to list it. You're going to have multiple offers. It's probably going to go over list price, depending on your strategy and what you determine with TaylorMade and the agent you're working with. So there's going to be a strategy session there to figure out what to do. And I won't speak to that. That's not my expertise, but you're going to sell your home and you're going to sell it quickly. So yes, just think of it as you're selling your home at let's say for ease, let's say the height of the market. And let's say you are buying a home at the height of the market. Well, it's still an even trade. Okay. So if you do need to buy and you do want a lifestyle change, you can buy and you can sell right now, and you can take advantage on both sides. In the sense that you're going to maximize that listing. You could also consider buying a home that's maybe a fixer upper, right? So maybe you're going to buy a home that's not as desirable on the market, and maybe there's not as much competition on a few different units. And we can look at a renovation or construction type loan to make that home exactly what you want it. And maybe you do get a deal, if there's such a word, on a home out there that might not have as much competition. And you could renovate that home to make it exactly what you want. So depending on and I'll take a step back. Your true ideal scenario would be you have a home to sell, you sell it for a great price, and for whatever reason, your job relocates you, family, something's going on, you need to rent for a couple of years, right? Maybe that makes sense. And you're pocketing some money, you're saving. You're not necessarily saving because you're paying some rent, but you're saving something. You've tapped in, and no one can predict right now if there's going to be, let's call it a correction. Maybe the market does drop 10%. Maybe it does, right? Let's be real about it. Let's not just make it all positive, right? But maybe it does drop a little bit. You won't, just like a stock, you only are affected by that drop if you sell. And what are the odds you're going to buy right now and absolutely have to sell in the next 18 months, right? And that's assuming it dropped 5 or 10% and you hit that little pocket where you're affected. We're talking about a needle and a stack of needles that you're going to be affected by that. So if you're seeing anything out there that scares you, you don't ignore it. Pick up the phone and call Terah, call your real estate agent, call me, call your other lender, whoever you're working with, whoever you trust, and get educated on it, because you have to be educated to make the right decisions. So.
Absolutely. And I want to say to your point of, suppose we do hit a state, what we've been referring to in our office is a stabilization of pricing, which would open probably open up the buyer pool even a little more. We've had an influx, especially in the Deep Creek area, but even outside of Deep Creek, folks coming in from other places that want to either find a retreat or want to relocate here because now they know they can do their jobs remotely, they can school their kids remotely. All of these options have opened up. So say that person wants to sell, but the market does correct or stabilize. Guys, if we're talking about a 5 or 10% change, that's still like 30% higher plus or minus than you would have been in 2019 or early 2020. So let's talk about that with regard to interest rates, because people are hearing about interest rates going up. I also want to say, when you're hearing nothing but bad news and everything sounds scary, consider the source. Trace it back and talk to someone who lives in it every day, who's maybe not necessarily just living to publish articles to sell a magazine or a website or a news channel. Talk to the people who work and live in it every day. So I love that mention from Rob about giving us a call, giving him a call, giving someone that you trust a call, because it's likely that the news you're reading is not quite how it translates into your individual market or for folks who live in the market. But while we're on the topic of big, scary news, let's talk about these interest rates, which everyone has been hearing are just going up, 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 up. And then I got a video from my friend Rob Ross this morning, and it actually is kind of going down right now.
It is. No, that's a good point. And, so a few things happened. Rates through 2020 and 2021, let's take a few seconds to talk about that. They're the lowest they've ever been. And the reality is it's the lowest they're ever going to be, right? You were looking at 30-year fixed in the mid twos, even the low twos in some cases. You were looking at 15-year fixed in the high ones in some cases. Just let's call it 75-year lows, all-time historic lows, never going to go lower, right? At least I don't think so. With that being said, if you purchase then or refinance then, congratulations, you hit the mortgage lottery. That's all it means. It doesn't mean I was smarter than the next loan officer. It doesn't mean you were smarter than the next home buyer or the next consumer. It means we all got really lucky, right? But while we were getting really lucky, we had to battle through COVID. We had to battle through death. We had to battle through job loss. We had to battle through everything everyone battled through in 2020 and 2021, and in some cases are still battling through today, right? So with that being said, we're getting back to a more normal market. And with a more normal market, meaning you can leave your house, right? you can go back into your office. You can go to sporting events. We're getting back to life as we know it. And with that comes inflation. And with that comes interest rates steadily rising. That's actually a good thing. We needed rates to come back a little bit, right? And that was something that was necessary and was going to happen. It was inevitable. Now, let me take a step back. With rates rising, oh no, we're at 4%. We're at 3.7%, right? High threes. That's insane. I've been doing this 22 years. When I first got into the business, the first deal I ever locked, and I'll never forget, because the guy had a check, and on his check, he had a skull and crossbones. So I didn't know whether to be happy or scared, but I'll never forget that. And that's when he wrote a physical check to pay for his appraisal and handed it to me, not, a PayPal or whatever technology we have today. This is, again, the year 2000. And his 30-year fixed was 7.25%. And you would have thought he won the mortgage lottery at that point, because that was a really low interest rate. And Terah and I were talking last night about, our parents and some older folks that I remember when my father refinanced from 16% down to 12, and you would have thought, the pigs were flying, because he couldn't believe that interest rates were at 12%. So we're all spoiled. That's what it means. And the buyer affordability today it still makes way more sense to purchase than to rent. It's still the most affordable it's been since 1968. We're talking Brady Bunch style house, right? So a long time ago. It still makes sense to purchase, not throw your money into rent if you can. And I could always work up estimates to show you that. Or we also have what's called a rent buy analysis, which we can also show you to show you the benefits, the tax benefits, everything like that. But rates, the prediction from the MBA, which is the Mortgage Bankers Association, which we're members of, over the next 4 years, the prediction is interest rates are going to rise slowly, but somewhere between the low fours to maybe the mid to high fours. That's it. You have a 4-year runway of prediction right now with interest rates as a worst case scenario in the mid fours. That's crazy, right? And right now, and Terah, maybe you were going to ask me this, but I'll touch on it maybe in advance, and I apologize if it's out of sequence here.
No, do your thing. I've got no agenda.
Gotcha. So the conflict in the Ukraine, right? It is pushing mortgage rates lower the last 2 weeks. Any COVID dropped rates, right? Massive tragedy. The Ukraine, massive tragedy right now, right? And it's pushing rates lower. And it, depending on what happens, it might push rates lower even more. We might see the low threes, the high two. It could keep coming down. I don't believe that with some of the Fed hikes that are coming, which don't directly affect your mortgage interest rate necessarily. But the last 2 weeks they have come down. They've come down from like around 3.89 national average to around 3.7. So we've seen that 0.17 drop in interest rates over the past few weeks. The Fed is going to meet later this month. If they raise rates a quarter, we're probably going to see mortgage rates remain steady. If they raise rates a half, maybe we see them jump up a little bit. But again, we're guessing right now because of the conflict in the Ukraine. So we can't really foresee what's going to happen. But what I can say is, regardless of what's happening overseas, regardless of what's happening now, rates, if everything else fails, you're going to see 4.5% rates for the next 3 to 5 years. So hopefully that helps.
I think it definitely does. I mean, we're talking about, generally speaking, we're talking about conventional, which non-conforming. Am I speaking the language right?
You are. Yep.
So, we're talking to the folks who are looking for probably their full-time residence. You and I talked about this yesterday when Eric and I bought our house in 2017. We were around 4.5, I think. I looked it up. So about 4.5. And we were fortunate to be able to refi down into the mid threes in 2020, and we were so excited about that. But geez, guys, I mean, that was 2017, 2018, 2019. It's not like we're going back to when our parents were buying houses at 12, 14, 15, 16%. So I love that reassurance, and I love the fact that yes, it's changing, but likely changing for the better for a lot of these folks who are serious in the market. So let's talk just for a little bit about the second home market, because that's such a big part of what we do here in Deep Creek and what you help us with all the time. We've heard some news that the loan adjustment rate, am I saying that right, is going to start changing and factoring in some costs with second homes and potentially even investment properties. So let's talk about that a little bit and ways to not necessarily skirt it, because honestly, there probably isn't a way to get around it. But what does it really mean coming down the pipeline?
Absolutely. So taking a second home market such as Deep Creek, I own a second home there myself through TaylorMade. So I know it well, and I can speak firsthand at the market and what it means. Buying a second home is a great thing. And we saw those numbers spike. I don't have a true statistic, but I can tell you my personal experience. It was tenfold. Is what I personally saw. And as a company, it was probably tenfold from 2019 to 2020 to 2021 on the number of people buying a second home. And it's the exact point you made earlier. COVID hit, you're stuck in a house, you realize you could work remotely, and you realize you were allowed to work remotely. So even though your job was in downtown DC or in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, you realize that in Pittsburgh, you don't have to be in Pittsburgh right now. And you can buy a second home in Deep Creek up on the mountain and stare at the ski slopes out your window and still work and have a little bit less stressful life, a little less population out your doorstep, and probably a little less exposure to COVID, to be honest, right? So that is kind of what we dealt with. And due to that, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, your government GSEs purchasing a lot of mortgages nationwide, their belly got full, for a lesser use of words. They took on more second homes and investment properties over the past couple of years than they had in many previous years combined. And with that being said, their concentration levels of those pools of mortgages have risen. So what happens is they're now looking at a risk analysis on their own side, saying, okay, well, if someone defaults on a loan, this makes sense. The last home they're going to default on is their primary residence because they live there. They need a roof over their head. The that they're going to probably default on as a second home because they like visiting it or maybe live there part-time. And lastly, they have way less issue defaulting on an investment property because they don't live there. So that's always been true. So as their investor pool of second homes and investment properties rose, they have kind of implemented some LLPA, loan level price adjustments, which has caused an increase in cost for a consumer to obtain a second home or an investment property. And again, let's just for ease, let's just say a primary residence was 4% and a second home was always right around the same thing, maybe 4%, 4 1/8, and an investment property, let's say, was 4.75, just for example purposes. Those second homes are now 4% for a primary, 4.5% for a second home, and maybe 5% for an investor. And maybe there's a few more upfront origination fees, nothing outlandish, but a few more fees upfront on those type of loans. That's really all it means in layman's terms. It's just gotten the slightest bit more expensive. But again, we're not talking hard money. We're not talking 12% with 2 points. We're not talking our parents' rates, right? We're talking the slightest bit more expensive to stabilize the market. That might keep some people off the fence. It really might, or keep people on the fence, I should say. It might keep some people on the fence and sitting on the sidelines waiting. Here's the cost of waiting. That real estate's still going up because of supply and demand. So even if you wait out the FHFA housing adjustments that have been passed down, even if you wait out these adjustments and they go away in 6 months or a year, which there's no guarantee of, so your interest rate on your second home's now 0.5% lower because you have less adjustments in a year, but your home's 40,000 more, right? Or rates have risen, so now it's the same that you would have purchased then, but you lost out on the equity, right? It would take the perfect storm of the market stabilizing, housing not going up $1 or even coming back from maybe a slight correction, interest rates not rising in the LLPA. You would have to have everything perfectly hit for you to time it. And unfortunately, no one's that smart. No one has that crystal ball and can predict it. So again, it's one of those things that if you hit that nail on the head, you got really lucky. So, but my whole point is rates are low, right? And it's still a great time. There's still plenty of so any of the news you see out there, there's still plenty of second home options. Here at Intercoastal Mortgage and into West Virginia, we're still known as MVB Mortgage. We have a couple trade names, entities. We have portfolio lending as well. So we have some amazing portfolio options right now, which are lower than the Fannie Freddie market, which allow you to buy a second home, which allow you to buy investment properties, and we can get you in at some lower interest rates and fees than the traditional market. So there are other options out there versus some of your small mom and pop banks, or maybe some of your financial planners that have a very small pool of mortgage options for you. Where I always use the tool belt analogy. It's my favorite. Some lenders, you have a tool belt on and you have a hammer and you have maybe a screwdriver hanging in there. We have power drills, we have saws, we have everything in ICM. We have a ton of mortgage options to help you find. And don't be stressed about that. That's our job. My job is to do a free analysis for you and really show you options A, B, and C, maybe options A and B. And hey, in some cases, you might only have option A, and that's okay. We'll show you what option A is, and you can know what you can do. But very rarely does someone come across our table that we can't pre-approve. So, and if we can't ever pre-approve you, we'll tell you why, and we'll coach you on what you need to do over the next 6 months to be able to get pre-approved. So it's an education process for us.
That's a great point. I think that so often buyers are coming into this process. First of all, if they, because again, it widens the scope. So talk to me just a little bit about, we've talked about conventional, we've talked about second home and investment. What other types of products are out there for our home buyers right now with the Ross Group?
Yeah, absolutely. If I could walk to my garage, which I'm not going to waste you, I would grab my hard hat and put it on to talk about construction loans, or the tool belt the metaphorical tool belt that I spoke about. So, yeah, construction loans are phenomenal.
Next time we'll do props. Yeah,
next time I'll have props, like Carrot Top out in Las Vegas. Remember him? So, construction loans are awesome. And I was educating Terah last night, and she already knew a lot of this. Construction loans are unique. right? And what I say by that is, if you open Google, I wanted to say look through the yellow pages, that doesn't exist anymore. But if you went to Google and search for construction lenders, you might find 100 mortgage companies in your area, but you're going to find about 4 or 5 that actually handle construction loans. That's, again, none of that is to scare you. That's just to educate you that not a lot of people handle construction loans. Construction lending is that's a passion of mine. It's actually something I really enjoy, because it's not the plain vanilla 30-year fixed mortgage that we do every day, and I can do with my eyes closed. Construction loan is a little bit more intimate process with the client, because we're tied to them. We become friends with them a little bit more. We have more time. And the reason I say that is they're going to find a piece of land and they're going to build a home, or they're going to find a home that needs renovated and they're going to renovate it. And that process of building or renovating might take 6 months to a year, maybe a year and a half in some cases. I have one right now that's 2 years. So the key word that you'll hear both of us talk about is patience when it comes to construction lending or renovation lending. But the upside potential to that is exactly that. Lots of upside potential. Maybe it's instant gained equity. Maybe it's the perfect house in the perfect location. And maybe it's not competing versus 10 other folks to buy a home right now. And that could be the case as well. So it gives you a little bit more flexibility. But Intercoastal and MVB, we've been construction. My 22-year career, I've done construction loans. So with construction lending, you don't want to work with a company that says, oh yeah, we just started doing construction loans, run. And I say that jokingly, but seriously. It's a partnership throughout the whole process. The head of our Jonathan's the head of our construction lending department here at ICM. He's based out of Fairfax, Virginia. But last year we did $675 million in construction loans, just to give you an idea as a company. That's one of the top in the Washington, D.C. metro area, up into Maryland and down into West Virginia. So it is a specialty of ours. It literally had a client 2 days ago call me. They have a ratified contract. They bought a piece of land in Deep Creek, and now they're working with a builder to build a home for around $650,000. And we're going to help them with a construction loan. We're going to get them to closing in 30 days, and they're going to get permits pulled, and we're going to start site work and foundation, and then framing, and then rough-ins with the electrical and the plumbing and everything. And we're gonna help them build a house. And throughout that process, we have what's called a draw process. So we, as the lender, hold a pool of funds. Think of it in a nest just waiting for you. And as you and your builder are ready to keep for the next step of building your home, we're going to release those funds out of escrow, and we're going to give those to you to where you can have the funds to pay your contractors, to do the framing, to put the roof over, to get the appliances. And we're your partner throughout that process, just as the real estate agent who might help you find that builder and go through that process. So a very unique product and a way to think outside of the box. If you can't find exactly what you want, we'll build it for you.
And to touch on the market situation specifically here in Deep Creek. So if you're a buyer looking for, and I want sellers to hear this too, or homeowners, if you are a buyer looking for a property in Deep Creek right now, as Rob was talking, I ran a couple quick numbers. There are 25 single family homes for sale in the Deep Creek Lake area right now. So that excludes fractional estates, timeshares, condo-tels, some other things that are unique in those ways, but 25 single family homes ready for you to walk in and buy. There are 107 lots listed in our market right now. So if you're talking about options, and as Rob mentioned, you've got a little bit of an opportunity for some patience. It's not a need-based market really for us. So patience can absolutely play a factor. If you've got some time and you need help identifying which lots are going to be best for ROI from a rental perspective, if that's the direction you're going in, that's something we can help with. If you're looking for the most privacy, if you're looking for the best view, whatever it is that you're after, chances are it exists in a lot and land option far and away over what is available right now for the single family home market. So I definitely love the construction option. And something else, and I apologize if you mentioned this, because again, I was typing a little bit while you were talking, but you correct me if I'm wrong, a buyer has the opportunity to tie the actual purchase of the lot into the purchase of the construction loan.
I did not mention that. So you were good at multitasking. So, but yes, you can. So you don't have to buy the lot separately. We would take the cost of the lot, let's call it 100,000, and the cost to build, let's call it 600,000. So we look at that as a 700,000 purchase price. And then based on that, you put down 20% down payment to purchase this even as a second home or a primary residence. And we take you through the process. If you already own the lot, and when I say own the lot, it doesn't mean you have to own it free and clear. You can have a lien or a loan against it. But if you already own the lot and you're building for, call it 600,000 or 700,000 or $1 million or whatever the build cost is, we can use what's called the after built value to determine your 80%. And what that means is if you have some equity in your land already, or the after built value is a little bit higher based on the cost to build versus where the actual market cost would be to go purchase that home, you get to take advantage of that. And you might need, although it looks like an 80% loan because we're basing it off that higher value, you might come to closing with 10% instead of 20%, right? You might be able to come with a little less money down. And those are all things that I'm well-versed in. And as we go through the process, I can educate you on your best steps, particularly for your own scenario, right? Because let me tell you, every buyer is completely different. Just like I always use the snowflake analogy. Buyers are just like snowflakes because they are all literally, and there's a lot of snow in Deep Creek, so they are all very unique for sure. So
I love that. Everyone has and I mentioned this briefly, everyone has a different objective. And
Yep.
so, often we'll start out the conversation about, what are you looking for? And we're talking about number of bedrooms, number of bathrooms. It's got to have this, it's got to have that. Finding out the why is such a big part of our business in being able to help you comb through whether it's the 25 single family homes or the 107 lots. And I think it's very similar with Rob and the products that they offer at the Ross Group. So I'm going to, I'm watching the comments and I see a couple of nice comments, but no questions. So I would say if you have any parting thoughts, Rob, and then let's definitely do this again soon.
No, this is great. I think I'm bringing props next time. We're going to figure this out. So we're going to make it entertaining. So, and I think both of us are entertaining enough, but props always help. So
for sure.
No, I mean, parting thoughts is it's a free process, right? And that's why I always stress, make us your Google, because if you're sitting up late at night, you're sitting with your drink of choice and you're just surfing the internet and you're trying to educate yourself, it's fine to do that. Everyone does that. It's right at your fingertips. But to meet with Terah and her TaylorMade team, to meet with myself or someone on my team at the Ross Group, it's free education. We're here to help you. We're not an attorney. We're not charging you by the hour. We are here to help you. We're here to help you accomplish your goals, figure out what you want to do, figure out the why, as Terah said. And it's our job to help you figure out that sometimes. Sometimes you don't even know the why. You're trying to figure it out. And we might be able to help you figure out the why. Take those steps. It's absolutely free to do a consultation with TaylorMade, to do a consultation with my team, to do a free full loan pre-approval. We'll get you fully approved. Some clients will call and say, I might not be ready to buy for a year, so I don't want to waste your time. No, let me look at your stuff now. Because guess what? I might find something now that's not good, right? Maybe I find something that's challenging with your scenario. But if I know it now, I can educate you on the right steps to be prepared when you're ready in a year. So take advantage of the free process would be my parting thoughts.
Awesome. I am on board with that 100%. If you're thinking about buying, our team at TaylorMade is able to get you introduced to folks like the Ross Group, maybe some other vendors that might be part of the process. We have a team, our title team downstairs that can walk you through those processes, home inspectors, but also the buyer consultation. So again, digging into that where, why, how, that process can start months, years in advance of when you're actually ready to purchase. And then I would echo that from a selling perspective. The biggest question that people should be asking right now is, what is my home worth? Even if you're not thinking about selling, give us a call. It can take an hour, it could take a day, but we can absolutely produce a number for you based on this increasing market all the time. And to that end, and I know I said we were going to wrap it up, but to that end, once you find out what your home is worth in this market, consider what you owe on a mortgage, which is, if you've had it for a few years, you've made a dent in that mortgage, and then think about the difference in those numbers. That, folks, is called equity. And a lot of people are sitting on mountains of equity right now. Even if you don't want to sell and buy another property, if you think that you are in an equity rich position, which I read 2 weeks ago, about 43% of the country right now is in an equity positive position. Talk to Rob or talk to your trusted lending partner. It doesn't have to be us. Talk to a real estate agent in the area. They can tell you what your home is worth. Get with a lender. And then what would they do with that info, Rob?
We were about to end, but now we can talk about this. No, you have two options. And this is what I see a majority of people doing, is exactly what she said. Either doing an equity line on your current primary residence, which we can point you in the right direction. We don't handle equity lines specifically, but I have 3 home equity line specialists that work in all 50 states, and they turn them around in 30 days. And I refer them 100 times a year. They're phenomenal. So if you want a home equity line, we'll help you figure out if that's the best step, or you might want to do a cash out refinance. So depending if you just purchased or if you missed the refi boom a few years ago, there are still people sitting there that will take, we had one, I talked about it to you last night, someone buying an investment property in DC. They're taking cash out of a current investment property in DC, and they're taking a couple $100,000 cash out, and they're going to use that $200,000 as a down payment on a new second home somewhere. So those are absolutely options. You don't have to necessarily have that money in checking your savings. It can absolutely be an equity in your home. And I didn't know that stat. I could have maybe guessed that stat, but that stat was that's right where I would have guessed it. There is more equity in homes in the U.S. than probably any time in history right now. So.
Absolutely. All right. Well, folks, look forward to, and Alec comments on the live stream using our portfolio product. So that must be, yeah, definitely.
Exactly. We can use that port product and pull that cash out.
For sure. So guys, look forward to more of these conversations with Rob and myself. If you thought of any questions along the way that you have, please reach out either via email or on our Facebook pages. We are prepared to educate you as often as you are prepared to listen. And thanks for coming to our TED Talk.
All right. Take care. Talk to you soon.
See ya.
You've been listening to Seasoned for Success. Thanks for listening.
Bye-bye.
We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from the show, and we'll be back soon. In the meantime, make sure to like, rate, and review. And don't forget to spread the word and follow us on social media. On Facebook at Seasoned for Success and on Twitter at Seasoned Success.
Have a good one. Bye.
Till next time.